3 rich men bullied the waitress. Then the billionaire CEO checked the cameras and did something horrible. What if 3 powerful men thought they could destroy a young woman's life in a single evening, only to discover that justice was watching through every camera in the room? The rain hammered against the windows of Bella Vista, the most exclusive restaurant in downtown Chicago, as 24-year-old Lily Chen wiped down tables with trembling hands. Her nursing school textbooks sat tucked beneath the hostess station, pages marked with highlighter and hope. She'd been working double shifts for months, saving every penny for her final semester. The elegant dining room buzzed with the quiet conversations of wealthy patrons, crystal glasses clinking softly against fine china. Lily had always found comfort in the restaurant's warm atmosphere, but tonight felt different. 3 men in expensive suits occupied the corner table, their voices growing louder with each round of drinks. Their laughter held a cruel edge that made her stomach twist with unease. She had no idea that in just a few hours her entire world would change forever. "Where are you watching from tonight?" Lily had been working at Bella Vista for 2 years, ever since her father's construction accident left the family struggling with medical bills. The other staff members treated her like family. Chef Antonio always saved her the day's best meal, and Rebecca, the veteran hostess, had become like an older sister. The tips here were good enough to keep her dream of becoming a pediatric nurse alive, and she was just 8 months away from graduation. The 3 men at table 12 were regulars, though Lily had never served them directly. Jonathan Hayes owned the largest real estate development company in the city, his family's wealth stretching back generations. Beside him sat Richard Blackwell, a hedge fund manager known for his ruthless business tactics and expensive taste in everything from wine to women. The third man, Bradley Morrison, had inherited his father's pharmaceutical empire and never let anyone forget it. They commanded respect wherever they went, their mere presence enough to make restaurant managers nervous. As the evening progressed, their behavior grew increasingly inappropriate. Lily watched from across the room as they snapped their fingers at servers, complained loudly about imaginary problems with their perfectly prepared meals, and made crude comments about the female staff. When Monica, a single mother who'd been working there for 5 years, approached their table to refill their wine glasses, Bradley grabbed her wrist tightly. "You're spilling on my $1,000 shirt," he hissed, though not a single drop had fallen. Monica's face went pale as she apologized repeatedly, her hands shaking as she backed away from the table. The other servers exchanged worried glances, but nobody dared to intervene. These men had the power to get people fired with a single phone call to the owner. The evening took a darker turn when the restaurant's owner, Mrs. Chen, no relation to Lily despite the shared surname, approached the table personally to address their complaints. The 3 men leaned back in their chairs with smug satisfaction as they fabricated elaborate stories about poor service and substandard food. Mrs. Chen, a dignified woman in her 60s who had built the restaurant from nothing, listened politely before offering to comp their entire meal. But that wasn't enough for them. They wanted blood, and they had chosen their target. Their eyes had settled on the young nursing student who reminded them too much of everything they believed themselves superior to. The attack began subtly, as predators often do. When Lily finally approached their table to clear their dessert plates, Jonathan's voice cut through the dining room's gentle ambiance like a blade. "Well, well, what do we have here?" he said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "The little girl thinks she can handle a real restaurant." Lily's cheeks burned as she maintained her professional smile, carefully stacking the plates. "I hope you gentlemen enjoyed your evening," she said softly, her voice steady despite the knot forming in her stomach. "But they weren't finished with her." Richard leaned forward with predatory interest. "You know, sweetheart, maybe you should find work more suited to your capabilities. Perhaps a fast food joint would be more your speed." The words hit Lily like physical blows, but she continued her work in silence. Years of helping her immigrant parents navigate a sometimes hostile world had taught her that dignity was often found in quiet endurance. Bradley, emboldened by his companion's cruelty, decided to escalate things further. As Lily reached for his coffee cup, he deliberately knocked over his water glass, sending ice and liquid cascading across the table and onto her uniform. "Oh," How clumsy of me, he said with theatrical concern. But I suppose that's what happens when restaurants hire people who clearly don't belong here. The entire dining room had gone quiet now. Other patrons uncomfortable witnesses to the humiliation unfolding before them. Lily knelt to clean up the mess, her nursing textbook falling from beneath her arm and landing in the puddle. The pages she'd studied so carefully, covered with her careful notes about pediatric care, were now soaked and ruined. That book had cost her nearly a week's worth of groceries, a sacrifice her family had made so she could continue her education. As she looked up from the floor, Lily noticed something she hadn't before. Security cameras were positioned throughout the restaurant, their red lights blinking steadily in the dimmed lighting. She had no idea that at that very moment, someone was watching every second of their cruelty unfold. Someone who had built an empire on the principle that true power meant protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. If this moment touched your heart, please give the video a thumbs up. The three men were about to learn that their actions had consequences they never could have imagined, and that sometimes justice comes from the most unexpected places. The humiliation continued as Lily cleaned up the deliberately spilled water, her hands shaking not from fear but from the effort of maintaining her composure. Jonathan Hayes pulled out his phone and began taking pictures of her on her knees, claiming he wanted to document inadequate service for his online reviews. "Smile for the camera, honey," he taunted. "This is going to make quite the story for my social media followers." The other diners looked away in shame, their comfortable evening now tainted by the cruelty they were witnessing but felt powerless to stop. Lily thought of her parents, who had worked 3 jobs each to give her opportunities they never had. She thought of her little brother, who looked up to her with such pride every time she came home with her nursing books. She thought of the children she dreamed of caring for as a pediatric nurse, the smiles she hoped to bring to worried families in hospital waiting rooms. These men were trying to steal her dignity, but they couldn't touch her dreams. As she stood up, book clutched against her chest, water still dripping from her uniform, she looked directly at Jonathan Hayes. "I belong here just as much as anyone else," she said quietly, her voice carrying a strength that surprised even her. "And someday I'm going to be a nurse who helps children heal. Nothing you do tonight can change that." The words hung in the air like a challenge, and for a moment, something flickered across Bradley's face, perhaps a memory of his own childhood, when his pharmaceutical empire father was too busy for his school plays and soccer games. But the moment passed, replaced by renewed cruelty. "A nurse?" Richard laughed harshly. "With an attitude like that, you'll be lucky to find work anywhere in this city. Do you have any idea who we are?" They began making phone calls, speaking loudly about getting her fired, about ensuring she'd never work in another decent establishment. Their voices carried across the restaurant like poison, each word designed to crush her spirit completely. Other staff members watched helplessly, knowing their own jobs could be next if they dared to intervene. But what none of them knew was that 43-year-old Alexander Romano had been watching from his private dining room upstairs. The Billionaire CEO had built his technology empire on a simple principle. Information was power, and power should be used to protect the innocent. Have you ever faced something like this? Let us know in the comments. He had seen enough, and he was about to show these 3 men what real power looked like. Alexander Romano quietly descended the stairs from his private dining room, his presence commanding immediate attention from the staff who recognized the restaurant's primary investor. At 43, he had built Romano Technologies from a small startup into a global empire, but money had never changed his core belief that character was measured by how you treated those with less power than yourself. His own journey from a working-class neighborhood to billionaire status had taught him that respect was earned, not bought. He approached the 3 men with calm authority, his expensive suit and confident demeanor immediately recognizing him as someone of equal or greater status. "Gentlemen," he said smoothly, extending his hand in greeting. "Alexander Romano. I don't believe we've met." Jonathan, Richard, and Bradley straightened in their chairs, suddenly eager to make a good impression on someone they correctly assumed was wealthy and influential. They had no idea they were shaking hands with their own downfall. "Please, join me for a drink," Alexander continued, his voice warm and welcoming. I've been watching your evening unfold, and I'm quite impressed by your assertiveness." The three men preened under what they mistook for admiration, launching into boastful stories about their business successes and social connections. Alexander listened with apparent fascination, occasionally asking questions that made them reveal more about their true characters. He was building a case, gathering evidence with the precision of a prosecutor preparing for trial. After 30 minutes of conversation, Alexander's demeanor subtly shifted. His smile became less warm, more calculating. "You know, gentlemen, I have something I'd like to show you. My security team has installed some fascinating new camera technology throughout this establishment. The video quality is quite remarkable. You can see every detail, hear every word." The three men began to look uncomfortable, sensing a trap but unable to identify its exact nature. Alexander pulled out his tablet and began playing footage from earlier in the evening. There they were, in crystal-clear high definition, humiliating Lily with deliberate cruelty. Their voices were perfectly audible as they made their threats about destroying her career, their faces clearly visible as they laughed at her ruined textbook. "Remarkable clarity, don't you think?" Alexander asked conversationally. "My AI systems have already compiled a complete timeline of events, cross-referenced with facial recognition and audio analysis." The blood drained from their faces as they realized they had been caught. If you've been enjoying this story, subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming tales. But Alexander wasn't finished with them yet. He was about to show them that when you attack the innocent, sometimes the universe sends someone to balance the scales. Alexander Romano's next words would forever change the trajectory of all their lives. "Gentlemen, I want you to understand something about power. Real power isn't the ability to humiliate a young woman working her way through nursing school. Real power is having the resources to ensure that actions have consequences." He tapped his tablet screen, and suddenly their phones began buzzing simultaneously. Text messages, emails, and social media notifications flooded their devices as the video footage spread to every major news outlet and social platform in the city. "You see," Alexander continued calmly, "I have quite a large social media following. Several million people, actually. They tend to find stories like this very compelling." Within minutes, Your Bella Vista Justice was trending, and the three men's professional reputations were crumbling in real time. Alexander had carefully edited the footage to protect Lily's identity while clearly showing their faces and voices. Their business partners, clients, and board members were already calling for explanations. But the real surprise came when Alexander called Lily over to their table. She approached hesitantly, still clutching her damaged textbook. "Lily," he said gently, "I've been watching you work for months during my visits here. Your kindness toward every customer, your dedication despite obvious challenges, your grace under pressure, these are qualities that can't be taught." He handed her an envelope that would cover not just her remaining nursing school tuition, but a full scholarship to the pediatric nursing program at Northwestern University. The three men sat in stunned silence as their world collapsed around them. Jonathan's real estate empire lost 3 major contracts before midnight. Richard's hedge fund clients began withdrawing their investments the next morning. Bradley's pharmaceutical company's stock price plummeted as footage of his cruelty played on every major news network. But Alexander wasn't done yet. He established the Lily Chen Foundation that very week, creating nursing scholarships for students from working families. He hired Lily as a paid intern at Romano Technologies' healthcare division, allowing her to gain experience while completing her studies. The restaurant became a symbol of dignity and respect, with servers from across the city applying to work in an environment that protected its employees. 6 months later, Lily graduated summa cum laude and accepted a position at Children's Memorial Hospital. She kept Alexander's business card in her nursing bag, a reminder that sometimes guardian angels wear expensive suits and carry tablets full of justice. The three men had taught her an invaluable lesson, that her dignity was hers to keep, regardless of others' attempts to steal it. The story spread far beyond Chicago, becoming a reminder that in an age of constant surveillance and social media, character matters more than ever. Sometimes the most horrible thing you can do to bullies is simply show the world who they really are. If you enjoyed this story, please remember to like, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe for more heartwarming tales. Thank you for joining us on this journey of justice and hope.